life coach for dogs with Tim Cornett.
Like and subscribe. Lady and the Tramp is a CGI remake of a classic Disney animated film. Like Dumbo or The Lion King before it, it takes some of the more culturally insensitive Siamese cats of its past and makes these films a little more inclusive. The film starts in the early 20th century with Jim Deere giving his wife Darling a puppy for Christmas. They named this dog Lady because of her gentle, ladylike demeanor. You know my dog Lola? My dad called her a perfect lady once, and I could never tell my sister that. They are making a couple of classic dog mistakes right up at the front. First of all, no crate. No crate at all. Their very first night after Christmas, after she spent however long in that box, they're like, here, we've got her a bed in the kitchen. They chuck her in the kitchen, and then they're like, good night, lady. And it doesn't work out. Understand that Lady and the Tramp, both the animated and the CGI remake, take place in a house that smell like pee and poop. First night, they let Lady sleep in the bed. Listen, I'm not one of those trainers that will say never give the dog, never let the dog in the bed, because something about dominance, this is where the master sleeps, but it is bad for human sleep. If you're gonna let dogs sleep on the bed, teach them a command to get off the bed and out of the room for when you want to have sex. Lady lives in a protective rich person bubble, and her only job is to bark at rats. Which is actually, that's kind of something this movie got right. Cocker spaniels are born to chase rats, rodents, little scurry things. If you have a Cocker spaniel at home, you'll know that it's it'll chase after the Roomba. It likes to dig in the carpet. It's something they got right. So congratulations, Lady and the Tramp. You didn't fuck it up completely. 2 points before we go on. One, they make a big point of giving her a collar at 6 months old and saying, now you're a legitimate dog. Put a collar on your puppy right away from a dog point of view. And what sort of authoritarian, you're not a person until you're branded by your master. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Fight the power. Unless you're a dog watching this, in which case, give in to the power. And the second very important point is that she can talk. She is a talking dog, but not the kind of talking dog that talks to people. She talks to other dogs and some other animals, but not all other animals like monkeys or horses. Lady is voiced by the woman who played Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok. And here we meet her neighbors, an old bloodhound voiced by Sam Elliott, and Jock, a Scottish terrier who is the center of her owner's world, and she's always painting pictures of her dog. She's always painting paintings of her dog and dressing Jock up in little outfits. That's the joke. Jock is always wearing little outfits. This is a switch from the original. Jock in the original animated film was a boy. He was a man dog. Real manly. The kind you'd like to have a beer with. And here, in an effort to make it more inclusive, Jock is a female. So, sorry, Jock. You got ghostbustered. You got ghostbustered. Dog gender is important to me. I don't know why. I always make sure by the collar that you can clearly tell what gender my dogs are. And
skulls, basically.
Yeah, skulls, or if it's a girl dog, nothing but flowers and ribbons. Yeah. Clearly just everything from the Disney princess line. And I always guess wrong when I'm looking, and I spend all sorts of times with dogs, and I'm like, oh, good boy. Here we meet a dog voiced by a guy that I had to Google. I still don't remember his name, but I do remember that he was Jennifer Aniston's second husband. And if you listen carefully to his voice, you can clearly hear that Brad Pitt would have done a better job. Tramp is the reason boys will watch this movie. Because other than that, it's just a rom-com for dogs. Tramp lives off his wits and loves his freedom, But like all street dogs, he has to stay one step ahead of the dog catcher. Most people in animal control probably don't appreciate this character because he hates dogs. Like, I don't think most people in animal control, like, honestly hate animals. That's not why you get into animal control. You get into animal control because you love animals. What qualities do you think entitle you to work here? And he's like, well, I hate dogs and I want to see them destroyed. I euthanized 3 dogs on the way in here. Like, when do I start? Here they introduce the best part of the movie, Aunt Sarah, played by that woman from Community. Now this is how you do a dog villain. She hates dogs, but she's not somebody that John Wick will kill.
I thought you were going to say John Wilkes Booth.
That's John Wick will kill, really it makes you want to say John Wilkes Booth. When we meet Aunt Sarah, it's in the middle of a baby shower because Jim Deere and Darling are expecting a baby. And the only prep that Lady has had for it is a bunch of people coming into her house for a baby shower, wondering why she's not getting walked. Okay, quick party tip. Walk your dog before you have the party. Make sure they're full, like they've got all the energy out and stuff, and then put them away. Let everybody come in, and once energy's settled down a little bit, let the dog come out and hang out with everybody until they get tired, and let them excuse themselves again. You know, they'll come back out, they'll scrounge for salami that people have dropped, and they'll go back up the stairs again. Let the dogs interact on their own level. Let the dogs have like their own level of fun and excuse themselves when possible. That happens to be advice that I have to give a lot because people are throwing a lot of parties out there. Not really inviting me, but they're still asking me how to get their dog to behave. Maybe that's what I should say. Like, hey, invite a dog trainer. I don't want to go to parties. I don't know why I said that. After she's being a little too much at the party, she's shooed outside so nobody in the house has to deal with her. And this is where she comes into contact with a dirty street dog by the name of Tramp. This is where it's beginning to mirror people relationships. Like, this is the dog equivalent of, oh no, the cops are looking for me. Can you hold my gun real quick? And she's like, okay. You're pretty much in a relationship right now, and it's toxic. After getting Lady into trouble, Tramp just skitters off, but not before the warning, a baby is going to change your whole world, Lady. Which it will. Tramp is not wrong. Lady's all upset. This is why you don't spoil a dog, because if you spoil a dog, they think that's what the base level is. So if you stop spoiling a dog, they're like, what did I do wrong? Why am I not being pet constantly? Don't you love me anymore? It's hard to maintain that level of affection. Next scene is where Jim Deere and Darling are at their worst. They invite Aunt Sarah to dog sit, but they didn't tell her she was dog sitting. They let her believe she was babysitting. But they're just taking the baby with her, and they're like, nope, you're dog sitting. And the woman has been on record, as per the scene earlier, as not being a fan of dogs. Can you imagine like anything ruder, like, hey, can you house sit for me for a while? Oh, also, I'm training a puppy, see ya. Like, that's needed information if somebody is gonna stay at your house. But Aunt Sarah's not a complete hero here. She's not a complete victim because she brought a basket with 2 cats in it without telling the people, like, hey, I'm bringing 2 cats into your house. Everybody here is inconsiderate. And there's no real excuse for it because this is the days when everybody wrote letters. Like, if you sit down at a typewriter and you're like, I'm telling you everything, you're not going to forget like, oh, you're watching a dog and oops, I'm going to bring cats over. Ridiculous. This is another split from the original animated version. The Siamese cats were very influenced by the fact that all the animators had just come back from World War II with a bunch of new stereotypes. But, okay, now I have not seen the animated version since like I was like 10. That's like when I last watched it. Guess which part I remember the best? Like, of all the songs in this movie, guess which one I can still recite to this day? It's the racist version. I am not comfortable being a man in 2020 saying I prefer the racist version. And I'm not saying I prefer the racist version, but I will. Like the new song, it's fine. it's about how much cats like messing up a house. Like, it's like jazzy. So they're like, da 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 da, we're cats and we love messing up houses, do do do. And, you know, it's fine. But I do miss the, like, when there is baby, there is milk nearby. Like, that's better. I won't say it's better, but it's definitely more memorable. And also, I'm not going to say that the new one isn't racist. Like, this whole movie and all these CGI remakes, like, they're made to be inclusive, but they just seem racist in a way that I'm too Caucasian to pinpoint. Like, I don't know exactly where to put like, this seems racist in a way that we'll have to apologize for later. So the cats mess up the house. They're scratching up the house. They break everything. And Aunt Sarah comes down. Typical cat person. Guess who she blames? Lady. She's like, Lady, how could you tear up this house? And then immediately decides this dog that I'm babysitting needs a muzzle. So she just swoops the dog down to put on a muzzle. Muzzles aren't necessarily bad, but they should not be applied by your evil Aunt Sarah. Somebody has done this in real life. Like, this seems like something a real Aunt Sarah would do. At the pet store, and having a muzzle applied by two people who are just clueless, Lady freaks out and gets out onto the street with a muzzle on, which is kind of a nightmare scenario because this is 1920s Cleveland and the city is overrun by rabid street dogs there, and she has no way of protecting herself. Lady, with all this stuff on her face, is accosted by a street dog. And this is another diversion from the original animated version, because in the animated version, Tramp shows up to save Lady, and he saves her by a Michael Vick style dogfight. Like, it's done in shadows on the wall. It's like you could conceivably throw down dollar bills at this version of the 1950s version of Lady and the Tramp. But in the new version, they're like, well, we don't want Michael Vick's endorsement from this, so they just had Tramp outwit the street dog. It's okay. It's fine. This is a filthy city, though. Like, take care of your rat and stray dog problem. After Tramp saves Lady, they do this like 20-minute montage, rom-com style, of dogs falling in love. This is an unrealistic. You know how long it takes dogs to fall in love? Approximately 5 minutes of intense butt sniffing. That's the nice part about dogs. They come like preloaded to love. They don't need a 20-minute montage of them enjoying the sights in the city. You know what sights they enjoy? A good butthole. But you know what part this scene does give us? Is the spaghetti scene. Do you remember the spaghetti scene, Steve?
It's the only scene I remember.
It's the only scene anybody remembers.
Besides the cats.
Yeah. Tramp takes Lady to the Italian restaurant, and the Italian restaurant's response was, Tramp, you have a lady friend. Here's a big bowl of spaghetti. And he plays accordion while the two dogs dine. This is actually kind of an impressive display of love. You know why I think this scene is so memorable, Steve? Because it's, who do you love enough to share your spaghetti with?
Yeah, a single strand of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
an ultimate compromise.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I love Corey very much, but she can get her own bowl of spaghetti. Tim's PSA, don't give dogs spaghetti. It's loaded with like onions and garlics and stuff, so spaghetti is actually dog poison. That's also the funny part. Unless they have an entire pot of dog-friendly spaghetti just brewing in their restaurant. Lady and the Tramp's spaghetti-fueled romance is brought to an end by the dog catcher, who finally has Tramp in his sights. Like every scrub before him, Tramp gets off scot-free, while Lady has to spend a night at the pound. At the pound, Lady learned that the only difference between street dogs and city dogs is largely a matter of luck. Unlike most street dogs, Lady's people came looking for her, and they found her at the pound the next morning. The Tramp can't get Lady off his mind, and like all scrubs before him, comes crawling back for forgiveness once the coast is cleared. Lady stands strong to Tramp and says, "No, you get out of here, you scrub. I'm a lady. I don't need any of your kind around here." But then, wouldn't you know it, a rat attacks the baby. A rat bursts into the house and attacks the baby. Your sour-milked little baby is just a rat trap. Don't make your baby a rat feast. Of all the information in this, and I know that we're having a lot of fun, seriously, rats attack babies. Educate yourself. The tramp jumps into action, and he's tearing up the room. He's chasing all around the room trying to get the rat. In the process, knocks down the baby carriage. The baby isn't hurt, but that's what got everybody's attention. And that's when the dog catcher comes in and he captures Tramp, and they're like, "This dog is a baby attacking monster." And he gets hauled away to the pokey. Lady is not about to let Tramp get euthanized for trying to save a baby. This is kind of another interesting part of the movie. Her and the neighborhood dogs chase after the dog catcher, and since this is the early part of the century, like, it's still like a horse-drawn dog catching wagon. So they're chasing after the dog cart, and they scare the horses, whom they cannot talk with. So the horses rear up, the cart knocks over, the horses go free and just run off, and the cart just tumbles over. The dog catcher could die, but he doesn't. Tramp is free. The dog catcher is crawling from the wreckage, "I'm going to murder Tramp." So he finally gets a hold of him, and then who show up? Jim, Deere, and Darling, who've now figured out they found the rat. They're like, "Oh, he wasn't trying to kill our baby. He was just trying to kill a rat in our baby's room, and he simply destroyed everything and knocked over our baby's crib. You've misjudged him entirely." And the dog catcher was like, "I am going to murder this dog. Please don't take this away from me." And Jim, Deere, and Darling are like, "No, he's our baby." And so then the final scene is him at Christmas getting a collar because now he's a legitimate dog. Conclusions. Everything in this movie has been updated except for the attitudes about dogs. In 1955, the message, "Hey, you don't have to throw away your dog simply because you have a child," was very progressive. But things have moved on a lot since then. If you live in the Cleveland area and you need a dog wrangled, hire a life coach for dogs. Like and subscribe. Which version do you think is better? The 1955 animated version or the updated 2019 version of Lady and the Tramp? Let us know in the comments.